Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to a Let's Build for a Trygon. Now the Trygon we're going to build is a Trygon Prime, but that doesn't really matter too much. So here we are, this is what we get. So a big fat base, two big sprues, and the instructions. So first things first, I'm going to use some clippers to take off the parts to make them lower body. Now I used to use a knife to do this, and to be honest it was a very crude way of doing it in my opinion. These little clippers, which I just bought cheaply off the internet, do the job quite nicely of removing the parts, and then once I've removed them all, I can then clean up all the different bits that needed cutting off. Now you can see here that I'm using my knife to clean this particular part, but I'm cutting towards my thumb, and that's not something I recommend you do. Never cut towards yourself with any knives or any such situations, but that's the way that I do it. As you can see though, I've got the main parts for, I think this is the middle part of the body here, the upper body maybe. Yeah, the upper body. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying them together first. Seeing if they fit well, making sure I haven't got any bits of plastic sticking off the parts or anything like that. And once I know that they fit correctly, I will then add some glue on. Try not to get too much on, but I'll just put a nice little coating all the way around. The glue I'm using for this is a liquid poly. It's almost identical to the sort of stuff that you can buy at Games Workshop. The only difference is I find for the same price you get a pot that's twice as big, and I just bought that from a local hobby shop. So there we go. There's the main torso stuck together. I'm just going to put the back on, and it's a very similar thing. I've just tried that on the model, and I'm using the side of the brush rather than the end, and I always when I've pulled the brush out of the glue, I do just wipe it on the side of the pot on the top rim so that there's not too much glue on there, because this, if you get too much glue on your model, it will run, and if you get it on your hands and you get it in places you don't want it, then you will get a lot of problems, and it will make marks all over the model. Now to one of the fiddly bits of the build. These these vents on the back of the shell here only need a tiny bit of glue in the right places, and then some of the smaller ones a little bit fiddly just to get perfect, and unless you do get them absolutely perfect, you can end up with little lines where it doesn't match up right, but a bit of time taken on that and it should be fine. Okay, so that's the main upper body done. Time to do the tail and lower body. Clipping it out just the same as before, and then looking to see if it fits without any glue, making sure I've got things in the right way round. That's another thing as well. You're not just making sure that the parts fit together okay, you're making sure you've got stuff the right way round. If it fits, job's a good one. So then we add some glue, and we're going to try and get this all stuck together now. And if you have problems with this part, then I suggest you could put some score marks around where I just added the glue on that bit there, and those score marks just allow for some extra texture to try and get those two parts together, but generally I don't find it's a problem as long as you then stick it to the base. So here you go, I'm putting plenty of glue on. This is probably the one part where I do use quite a lot of glue, and because you don't get a very good contact with the surface, because that base is not smooth, which, you know, in some ways makes it better, but it's not a very soft plastic. It's a harder plastic than the body, so lots of glue on that bottom bit there, and then we can add the upper torso on. Just plop it on with some glue, and then position it how I want. There's not a lot of room for manoeuvring on the positioning of that body, but there is a bit, and it's all part of the overall effect. There we go. Right then, so I suppose we ought to get the head done. The head has lots of parts, some of them quite intricate in terms of making sure you get them clean after taking them off the main sprue. So as you can see here, I'm making up part of the head now just by putting a few bits together, and then when you've done, the Prime has big claws that come out here. I think the standard Trygon doesn't have so big a claws, but there you go. I've just put a bit of glue in each of the recesses, and I'm just holding it in place and adjusting it to exactly how I want it as that glue is setting. Well, there's the main model there, but before we pop the head on, I'm going to do another fiddly bit, and that's to put some of these spines in. All the way down the body there's these small little round recesses, and these little spikes come, and you can place them all in. And to be honest, it is also one of the more fiddly parts, and also one of the more dangerous parts. I mean, the number of times I spiked myself building this model, some of these parts are really sharp, and I think it wasn't a Trygon, but a very similar scything talon, just like I'm cutting out now, on a Carnifex, once actually made me bleed quite a lot. So take care with that, especially after you've cleaned them up, they might be a bit sharp. So yep, here we go, all the scything talons out. For some reason I think the Trygon Prime counts as having 2 pairs, even though it's got 6 claws. Not sure how that works, but before we pop them on, now the rest of the model is dry, we'll just glue the head in place, and then place it gently on its side, ready to put the first lot of talons in. I always keep big bulldog clips nearby. They're handy in very many situations, just for holding things still whilst you're working on them. So a nice dab of glue all the way around the inside without knocking my glue pot over again, and there we go. So with these ones it can be quite difficult to work out exactly which one's which if you're not looking at the diagrams, but it's not too bad, and but getting them to stay in place is a little tricky. So possibly, maybe only do 2 at once, and then you can just pop one in with one hand and hold the other one with the other hand, but you've got to think about where they're all going to be positioned. Anyway, there we go, there's the Trygon all made up. There's not much left on this to do. I think that is all of it now. I've put all the little chest plates on and that, so that's fantastic. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this Let's Build of the Trygon Prime. I want to thank you very much for watching, and until I see you next time, goodbye.